What's up, guys? Thanks for stopping by the channel. This is my review of Palmer, coming to Apple TV+. This drama is directed by Fisher Stevens and it stars Justin Timberlake, Juno Temple, and Ryder Allen. It follows an ex-con played by Timberlake who returns to his rural small-town home after being released from prison, and he strikes up an unexpected friendship with a young boy from a troubled home. So let's get into the good, the not so good, and everything in between to see if this movie is must-see or not.
I will not abandon that boy.
Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you, nothing about this trailer really grabbed me when watching it. It felt a little melodramatic and a little bit procedural in the genre of these intergenerational friendship films, but I gave it a shot anyways, and this movie turned out to be just another example of why sometimes you just gotta hit the play button, because I ended up loving what this movie put together. So let's jump right into the positives. I certainly think the performances overall were what surprised me the most about this movie, but I want to get into the story first because that's where I think the groundwork for these characters was effectively laid, which resulted in the performances being able to bring all the needed life and personality and emotion into them. Because admittedly, the story doesn't really break out of that formula. We've all seen the ex-con returning to the town he was raised in to try and reacclimate himself and rebuild his life. We've seen this story take place in rural America before as well. We've also seen the gruff older character open their heart to the younger character in need of companionship. However, despite all the familiarity of the plot progression, it didn't hinder the ability of the story to grab at your heart. Because what I think this story does nicely is it stays in its own lane. It doesn't try too hard to do anything, which just gives the entire story just a layer of authenticity that can really lure you in. It does follow a path we've been on before, but with all the parts added to this progression, it does a great job of changing the scenery a bit. It also spends the needed time on building this relationship and friendship between Palmer and young Sam, and seeing the bond between them just grow naturally was very endearing, which leads me into what I think was the best thing about this movie, that easily being the performances from young Ryder Allen and Justin Timberlake. This is the full feature debut from Ryder Allen, and I think he knocked it out of the park with about as subtle as a powerhouse performance can be. I think he just brought all the innocence and the quick wit that was needed for this role. He plays a quirky kid that's a bit different than those around him in this small town. He deals with a lot of torment, but there's a resilience captured in his performance that you can't help but connect with and just want to see more of as the movie progresses. And as for Timberlake, I mean, there's no denying he's had his ups and downs on the big screen, and he's tried a bit of it all, from being the action lead to the rom-coms, and I think here he really does deliver his finest, most well-rounded performance. I don't think he disappeared into the role, but he did breathe compelling life into Palmer. His performance was very grounded and extremely heartfelt, and he also had a fantastic chemistry with Allen that was perfect for the needs of this story. Because simply put, these two characters take a beautiful journey together in this movie, and I think both Allen and Timberlake, through their performances, are what make that happen. I think the supporting cast was excellent as well. Alisha Wainwright, June Squibb, Juno Temple, and even Dean Winters, they all leave their mark on this movie to create just a genuine cast of characters to really round out the story of Palmer and Sam. Now, as for the drawbacks, I think it's pretty easy to point at the procedural progression of the story in places. Personally, I don't think they get in the way of being able to invest in the plot and feel the dramatic punch of the movie, but there are some tropes in this film that we've seen before. There's also character types we've seen done before as well. I would also say the settings and the backdrops don't really give the movie a unique tone or atmosphere either. The movie does feel very familiar visually as well, with direction from Fisher Stevens that is capable but a little bit bland and kind of feels like it plays it safe. Camera angles and movements and cuts and scene intros do feel generic to the eye while watching. However, regardless of all that, I was still locked in and completely invested into the story of Palmer and Sam regardless, so I'll give Palmer 85%. You strip everything away from this movie, and the performances and the story growth between these two characters is more than enough to recommend checking it out. It doesn't waste minutes, and before you know it, you're going to be completely invested into seeing where Palmer and Sam are going to wind up when the end credits do finally roll. Now for today's My Silver Screen recommendations, I selected 3 other movies that center around that intergenerational friendship. First, I picked Mud, starring Matthew McConaughey. It's an undermentioned film that I really enjoyed. Next up, I had to, of course, take it back to the 80s to pick a classic, The Karate Kid, because seeing young LaRusso learn from Mr. Miyagi will never get old. And finally, I picked Safe, starring Jason Statham. I feel like I've just recommended this one in another video, but regardless, it's a good time. It's kind of heartfelt at the same time and still manages to deliver some Jason Statham ass kicking. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, drop it a thumbs up, leave a comment below. I'd love to talk movies with you guys. Share it with your friends, and without question, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can never miss a video. Here are some links to some recent reviews just in case you missed them. All my social media links and the link to our official website are down in the description below, and I'll catch you next time.